I call Ian McKelvey.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It gives me great pleasure to take a very short call on the organised crime and anti-corruption legislation bill at this third reading. And this bill, of course, went through the select committee that I'm part of and took quite a considerable time, I guess, for me to get my head around the bill. I think I've said that in here before and got into trouble, but it's part of the government's response, I guess, to organised crime, basically. And the national government has done some work in the organised crime area already around the Criminal Proceeds Recovery Act, which has just recently commenced, I guess, some 4 or 5 years ago, and also around the Anti-Money Laundering and Countering the Financing of Terrorism Act in 2009, which has recently commenced, in fact, in June 2013. So we've started some work. This is a continuation of that work. And, Mr Speaker, this law covers all sorts of crime, as the previous speaker mentioned. And I think, unfortunately, if we all in New Zealand had the same or perhaps a higher level of standards, in fact, if we around the world had that level of or valued our freedom and the way we behave, we wouldn't need legislation like this. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And so I think this piece of legislation is a very good response to, a very good initial response to some significant challenges we face. And only at lunchtime, I sat by a member of the Microsoft team in New Zealand. We were talking about cyber security, and it just shows how the world's changed so dramatically in the last, I guess, 15 years, that we're now needing to protect people's information I guess, effectively in space. So we put the information out there. We hope it's stored securely. Usually isn't, or maybe isn't, and consequently there's a significant amount of work going into ring-fencing that information and trying to keep it secure. So the world changes so quickly that we need to keep our legislation ahead of, or certainly up with the change as best we can. This bill is an effort by the Minister to do that. It took a lot of work from the Select Committee to get it to the point it's at now, and I think it will play a very valuable part in the future of protecting New Zealand and New Zealanders from organised crime. Thank you, Mr Speaker. Right, Fozzie, that's my lot.